Either way, you can focus on keeping the ball straight and developing a shooter stroke without worrying about distance.
Over the front of the rim.
If you have access to a goal, then position yourself an arm's length away from the front of the rim, set the ball in the waiter position, and stroke the ball just over the front of the rim. Try not to let the ball touch the rim. Go for a swish. See how many you can swish in a row. You might prefer sitting in a chair and doing the same thing. By the way, this is a great way to continue your shot training if you're injured. As long as the injury is not to your shooting arm, you can sharpen your shooting stroke during your downtime.
Chapter 6. Training your shot line.
Sometimes training your shot form on the basket is not the best thing to do. It's so easy to get carried away with making the ball go in that you forget what you're working on. The answer is to move away from the basket and get on the line. This is the single best way to concentrate on building your form and training the ball to stay on your shot line. You can get in a high amount of reps in a short period of time because you won't be chasing your ball all over the court.
The geometry behind the training.
Now, the goal of proper shot form is not to simply look good when you shoot, but to control the fly of the ball. How much control do you need? Do you have to be perfect? Well, of course I want you to shoot for perfection, but let's examine this mathematically. The rim is 18 inches in diameter. The men's ball is 9.4 inches in diameter. The women's ball is 9 inches in diameter. This means that if your shot hits dead center, the perfect bullseye, then you'll have over 4 inches of room on each side of the ball. In other words, your shot could be off the center by over 4 inches and yet still go in without touching the rim. By the way, I'm speaking mainly from a standpoint of right and left. When it comes to short and long, that's a function of your arc, and in Chapter 12, the NOAA system will break this down and explain it in detail you can understand. Now, we all know that shots can hit the rim and still go in, so that means you could be off your shot line by more than 4 inches, probably 5 or 6 either way, and still make the basket. So, when you're line shooting, the ball could land anywhere from here to here, and it still represents a made basket. But don't settle for that much error. If you can control the fly of the ball well enough to hit a 2-inch target like this line, then imagine how easy hitting an 18-inch rim will be.
Where's your shot line?
Now, where do you place the line? Is it under your left shoulder, right shoulder, or exactly between your legs? If you're like most right-handers who are also right-eye dominant, the line will be a few inches to the right of dead center. Vice versa if you're left-handed and left-eye dominant. However, if your shooting hand and dominant eye are opposite each other, then place the line dead center between your legs. Now, what do I mean by dominant eye? Your dominant eye is the stronger of your two eyes, the eye that you aim with. How do you determine which eye is dominant? Here's one way. Target a friend's nose through a tube at arm's length with both eyes open. You can use an actual tube or form a tube with both hands. Your friend, like this camera view, will see only one eye through the tube. That's your dominant eye.
How important is this dominant eye stuff?
If you have trouble keeping the ball straight, or if there's head movement during your shooting stroke, then test to see if your dominant eye is opposite your shooting hand. Now, if you don't have these problems, then don't worry about it. But let me give you an example of a player for whom it was important. I had a player who was a very inconsistent shooter. Great one night and missing everything the next. While I was under the goal rebounding for him, I noticed his head moving to the side like this during his shooting stroke. At first, I told him to keep his head still. That didn't work. I then tested for a dominant eye. He was right-handed and yet had a very dominant left eye. To compound this problem, he had been taught at an early age to line the ball up with his right foot, right knee, and right shoulder as if he was extremely right-eye dominant. Unaware of it himself, he was moving his head to the right in order to get his aiming eye closer to his shot line. The solution was simple. Instead of moving his head, I moved his shot line closer to his left eye. This was as simple as asking him to set the ball here instead of here. Immediately there was no head movement, and immediately his accuracy and consistency went up. Now, that kind of immediate feedback might not happen every time. But when I see side-to-side head movement, I check the player's eyes and adjust the shot pocket horizontally.